Oh god, this feels so weird because I haven't done it in so long. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leah, and if you haven't guessed by the title up above or from the thumbnail, then you will know that today I am filming a labour and delivery story time video. I wasn't sure whether to do a video like this because I don't normally do like story time videos where I sit and just talk to the camera. But since I had my first child, I have been inundated with so many messages of people saying that they wanted to hear my labour and delivery story. I think a part of this is because I was so close to my due date, and I even went over my due date, and I was vlogging the whole time, and I was telling you how basically the baby wasn't coming anytime soon, how I'd had midwife appointments and scans, and I'd been to the hospital, and everyone was just telling me that the baby wasn't ready to come out and I would be waiting a while for labour to start. And then all of a sudden I just posted on social media that I'd had my baby 3 days after my due date. So it was a bit of a shock when I did go into labour, because I was told so much that I would be waiting ages for the baby to arrive. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people wanted to hear a storytime video. So I'm going to do that for you today. I'm going to stop jabbering with this intro because it's going on for ages. So as I just said, it all started on the 6th of May 2018 at around between midnight and like 12 in the morning. So I went to the toilet. Nothing out of the ordinary. I go to the toilet loads, especially when I was pregnant. I was going pretty much every like half an hour to an hour. And I went downstairs to the toilet, came upstairs, got into bed, and I turned to lie on my right side. As I was getting comfortable, I just felt like this weird puncture, like this big pop in my stomach, and I actually heard like a massive pop sound. And for about 15 to 20 seconds, I was lying there going, what was that? Because in my head, I was like, that could be my waters, but I didn't have any water coming out of me, anything like that. But about 20 seconds after I heard the sound and I felt it, there was just this gush of water, and it completely covered the whole of my side of the bed. It covered me. I was soaked. And I was just like, oh my god. And Harry was asleep next to me, and I just went, Harry, my waters are broken. And he shot up. Like, I don't even know how he did that, because he was fast asleep. And he just shot up, and he was just like, oh my god. And he got up, got out of bed, ran around to my side, and he was like, what do we need to do? Now, my first instinct was to call my mum, because my mum is my birthing partner as well as Harry, and I just thought, I need to call her because she's had 3 children, so she'll know what to do. And in my head, I was just like, I need to tell her. She was also like our mode of transport to get into the hospital, so I thought I need to call her first, because most likely we need to get into hospital right away. When I called my mum instantly just told me that I needed to call the hospital and tell them what had happened. So my instinct was, I need to go to the toilet. There was this gushing water coming out of me. So in my head I was like, I need to go and just sit on the toilet. I went downstairs, and as I was going down the stairs, there was water just constantly coming out of me. And I went and I sat on the toilet. It was weird because I felt like I needed to have a wee, but I didn't. And it was just this water coming out of me, as I said. And we got one of the massive, we have these huge towels in our bathroom. And I went back into the living room, and I kind of just had to stand in the middle of the living room whilst this water started to like trickle out of me. It really slowed down from a gush, and it was just like water. It kind of felt just like I was wetting myself, but it just wasn't stopping. We then called up the hospital, who then told us to call up the birthing part of the hospital, if that makes any sense. So we then called the hospital, and they told me to call the birthing suite, which is a different department, and tell them that I was on my way, because basically when your waters break, you need to instantly go into hospital, because it is really imminent that you could get an infection. Something could happen when your waters break. Most women go into labour without their waters breaking, so that's why a lot of women stay at home for a bit before they go into hospital. I then called my mum back and she said that she was going to come and pick us up. This was at about 12:30, so luckily we had all of our bags packed. There was just like a few little things that needed to be packed, like house keys and chargers and stuff like that. So Harry ran around the house collecting all of those things together, because obviously I couldn't because there was so much water coming at me. But at this point I had started having contractions. I didn't have any contractions before my waters broke, and it was like, I'd say about 10-15 minutes after my waters broke, so after I'd called the hospital, that my contractions started. My contractions went straight to having intense contractions for a whole minute every 3 minutes. Now that is when, if you were in labour and your waters hadn't broken, that is when you would have to go into hospital, because that's when things are getting like serious, and that is when they need to like monitor you. So I went straight from waters breaking to intense, quick contractions. So my body just didn't mess about. I just went straight from 0 to 100, and they were so painful. But looking back on it now, they got so much worse, just like so much worse. This made everything so much more difficult when my mum arrived, because I was basically like sat in the living room with nothing on my bottom, and I just had my top on. Now when people say you lose all dignity when you go into labour, it is completely true, because I was like just half naked in the living room when my mum arrived, and she had to like help me get dressed. I put on a long maxi black dress. This was because anything that I wore that was like trouser based or around my crotch area was just getting drenched. I would put on a like really thick maternity pad, and about 5 seconds later I would have to change it. I'm not even joking, it was that quick I was having to change them. And I ended up getting into my mum's car with a rolled up towel in between my legs, because there was just so much water coming out of me. And this was at about 1 o'clock that we got into the car and we drove to the hospital. The hospital's only 10 minutes away from our house, so that was like really handy. I had to sit in the back with Harry because my contractions were just getting so painful at this point, and obviously I'd had no pain relief. And even getting out the car, in the car park, I was having a contraction. And then when we were walking to the waiting room, I had to stop and sit down on a chair because I had another contraction. And then by the time we made it to the waiting room, I was having another one. So they were getting like 2 minutes apart. At about 1:30, I was seen really quickly. I was taken into a birthing suite. The room was absolutely amazing. Like I was envisioning being in like a ward or a really small room, but this room was absolutely incredible. It was massive. There was a huge bed with loads of pads everywhere. There was a massive birthing pool. There was a shower room. It was just absolutely amazing. There was just so much stuff there, and it made me feel so comfortable because there was just like so much room. It was really, really good. Once I was in the birthing suite, I was basically examined by the midwife, and she basically gave me what I would have had as a sweep, and these are so uncomfortable. And she told me that I was 4 centimetres. Now this was an hour and a half after my waters had broken, so I had seriously gone from waters breaking to 4 centimetres dilated in an hour and a half, and it was going really, really quick, my labour. 4 centimetres is at the point where they would say, right, you're not allowed to go home. So I was told that I wasn't allowed to go home and that I would be having my baby right like that day. And just want to apologise for my voice. I've got a really, really sore throat at the moment and a really bad cough, so just apologise if I sound a bit weird. At this point the pain was getting really, really difficult, so the midwife basically gave me some strong painkillers. If you have never been in labour, you would think that you would instantly be put on gas and air or something like that, but because the midwives don't know how long your labour is going to be, they try and put off being on gas and air for as long as possible, or any like stronger pain relief, because basically if I started gas and air straight away when I got there, by the time it had come to me giving birth, it would have worn off. The effects wouldn't have been as strong, and I would definitely need it more towards the end than I did at the beginning. And although the contractions were really painful, I kind of could breathe through them and sort of like concentrate and just, you know, squeeze on someone and it would disappear. I was then taken for a bath. This is something that I didn't even know that they did at the hospital, but basically they have their own rooms, which is basically like your bathroom at home. And it was a proper bath, and it was like a hot bath with loads of bubbles in it, and it was absolutely amazing. And Harry and my mum sat in the room with me whilst I got in the bath. I was in there for around about an hour. First 45 minutes or so, it really calmed me down. It really soothed all my like muscles, and it really helped me get through the contractions, which were getting super close together. But towards the end of the bath, I was screaming, and I mean screaming in pain, and I was screaming, get me the gas and air now. I just wanted some stronger pain relief because I was in so much pain. At around 2:30 to 3 o'clock, I was taken out of the bath and back to the birthing suite, and the midwife had to check me over again, and at this point she told me I was 7.5 to 8 centimetres dilated. So when you are ready to push, you have to be 10 centimetres, which is fully dilated. So at this point I was pretty much at the end, which was just glorious to me. So I was allowed to have gas and air, and let me tell you, it is incredible. Oh my god, I can't tell you how many times I tried to convince Harry to buy one of these when I was in labour, because I was like, we need one of these for the house. I was so high on gas and air that the contractions, they were still really painful. You zoned out of it. It was kind of like you were extremely drunk. So when you're really drunk, you know, if you hurt yourself, you don't really feel it as much. It just helped me so much. It was absolutely incredible. I was talking about seahorses and octopuses and dolphins. I was telling everyone anything they wanted to know. Like, you know, when you're drunk and anyone just asks you a question, you full on tell them the truth, even if like it's like the biggest secret in the world. That was what I was like on gas and air. At 3:30, I was then taken into the birthing pool. This was because my contractions were getting so close together and I was pretty much 10 centimetres dilated at this point. I loved the birthing pool. I had my gas and air, and it was really good because you could like get yourself really comfortable. It relaxed all your muscles again like the bath did, but it was just so spacious. The midwives even put the radio on for me, so there was like a lot of music playing at this time, which was good because if you heard a song, you could kind of like concentrate yourself on that song. The contractions were getting so intense at this point, and then at about 4 o'clock, I got the biggest, like in my head and my body, I was just like, I need to push. And I could I can't even explain it. It was like my head was telling me to push, but I didn't even need to push. I could feel my whole body just like cramping so intensely down that like you kind of had to go and push to make everything more comfortable, because your whole body was just contracting down so hard that you needed to push. At this point, the midwives were starting to see the head, and this was at about 4:30. And they were starting to see the head. Everyone was telling me that I was doing really well and that I needed to push. But because I was so like high on gas and air, and that it was like I was kind of concentrating on taking away the pain and the contraction ending, that I wasn't pushing properly. So I was taken out of the pool and the gas and air was taken off me, and I was so upset. I was screaming. I was going, no, give it me back. And I was asking if I would get it back at any point, and they were like, no, you are having this baby without any pain relief, without any gas and air. And I was just like, what? Because I wasn't pushing properly on any sort of like pain relief. They were like, you need to do this without pain relief so you can kind of put all your effort, all your contractions, all your energy into getting this baby out. At this point, when I was taken out of the pool, I was sat on this, what can only be described as the world's biggest potty for adults, and I was sat on it, and I was proper pushing down, but it was so painful. You could like feel everything trying to rip, and so I was pushing down, but as I was pushing I was kind of stopping myself because I didn't want myself to rip. Potty was so uncomfortable because I was getting contractions all through my thighs and my legs, so sitting down was just so painful and so uncomfortable. But at this point the top of baby's head came out, and I made the fatal decision of looking and feeling, and I looked down and everyone was like, oh my god, look, it's the head. And they were like, if you like, I remember the midwife telling me to look there because she was like, it'll encourage you to push the baby out. I looked down and saw the baby's head, and it was encouraging me to try and get it back up, because I was like, if that's the top of the head, I'm not getting this out. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. I was screaming to get off this potty because it was so uncomfortable. So I got off it, and basically there were steps to get into the birthing pool, and I bent over the steps. The midwife didn't want me to do this because I just wasn't getting baby out in that position. It just wasn't happening. Baby wasn't moving. And then I was made to go back on the potty, and I hated it, so then I had to get back onto the bed. At this point I was pushing for dear life for about an hour and a half, and at this point the baby's head had been there for nearly 2 hours. So I was pushing and pushing, but it was just so painful that I was stopping myself. I was pushing, but my body was like stopping itself from pushing the baby out. It was getting really uncomfortable. I was begging for forceps, for suction cups. I was begging for a C-section. I was begging for anything that meant I didn't have to push this baby out, because it just seemed impossible at this point. And the midwife basically told me that she would have to cut me, which I know is probably TMI, but this is a labour and delivery story, so you've kind of like, you've put yourself in for this disgusting knowledge. And I was cut. She told me that I needed to be cut because we needed to get baby out as soon as possible, because, well, basically baby had been there for way too long. I remember her telling me that she was going to cut me, and I was like, okay, that's fine. But then I saw her walking towards me with this massive needle, and I attempted to get up off the bed and climb out of that room because I couldn't do it. I was just like, no. So I saw her come towards me with this needle. I tried to move. My mum had to like pin me down with Harry. And then I didn't even feel it go in. Didn't even feel her cut me. And all I heard was, the head's out. And I looked down and I see this head there, and oh my god. Oh my god, it was like just so weird. And then she went, one more push, one more big push for your next contraction, and baby's head will be out. So I waited a while for my next contraction, and then I pushed, and baby wasn't coming out, and I was just pushing and pushing and pushing so much, and they had to like physically like grip him and like pull him out. And then he was pulled out. He was pulled out and he was put straight onto me, and then I took my top off and lay there with him and did skin to skin. And the midwife looked at me and Harry, and she went, do you know what gender it is? And we went, no. And in our heads we just hadn't even thought about it. And then she went, do you want to know? And we went, yeah. And she lifted him up, and we saw that he was a boy, and oh my god, we were just so happy. Harry and my mum were both crying so much. They were both like in hysterics crying, and I was just lying there. Like, I feel bad looking back at it now that I didn't cry, but I was kind of just lying there looking at the baby like, thank god that's out of me. Because I was just in labour and in so much pain for so long. I was just like, oh, that's done, that's over. And I was just so happy to have my baby on my chest, but it also felt so surreal that I actually had a baby. Now, me and Harry, for boy and girl, had a name that we'd told our families and our friends, and then we had a secret name for each that we wanted to have, and then we wanted to just like decide in the moment whether we were going to use it. So for a boy we had Archie and Rupert, and in that moment when they asked us if we had a name in mind, we both kind of just looked at each other and said Rupert. and that was his name. And then my mum called my dad and told him the good news, and Harry called his parents. Rupert then instantly latched onto me, as in breastfeeding, and I started breastfeeding him. The next thing that the midwife asked me if I wanted an injection to get the placenta and all of that stuff that grows with a baby out of me. I didn't want the injection because I didn't want anything else going through my system at that time, so I just wanted to birth it naturally. Basically, if you have the injection, the placenta comes out within 15 minutes. If you birth it naturally, it comes out within an hour. So to me, I was kind of like, I'm not really bothered, I'm lying here anyway. But it was getting to like 50 minutes after I'd given birth to Rupert and the placenta still hadn't come out. So I was made to go and sit on the toilet with like a potty, like cup thing, bowl in there to catch it, which is like really disgusting. And I was sat on the toilet and I was in there on my own, and then I just felt a massive contraction and I was like, oh my god, I thought these had stopped. And I went, Mum, and I screamed my mum, and she came into the bathroom and I was gripping onto her and I was having this massive contraction, and then all of a sudden I felt this huge, imagine what it'd feel like to hold a brain, that coming out of you. And then I looked down and oh my god, it was huge. It like filled this whole big bowl like this size. And then I was given loads of pads and I was made to go and lie down on the bed again. And then I basically had to be stitched up. I, at this point, think the stitches were probably more painful than the actual giving birth. Probably an exaggeration and probably not true, but seriously, they really hurt. So you are sat with your legs clamped up. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. I knew this was going to happen. Before I was cut, my legs were made to be clamped up because I wasn't pushing properly, and because my legs were hurting so much, I was being told to push down. So my legs were clamped. So when it come to me having my stitches, I had to be clamped, and there was like a woman down there and she put anaesthetic in me and I had gas and air whilst Harry had Rupert. And oh my god, it was so painful. The anaesthetic kept wearing off, and even though I was on gas and air, I could still feel this woman stitching my bits back together, and it was, oh, it was so painful. And I think what made it worse was she had a student nurse sat next to her when she was doing it, and she was like explaining to the student midwife every single step that she was doing. So I was getting like a play-by-play of everything that she was doing down there, everything that she was doing down there, and it was just... Harry's parents then turned up to meet Rupert, and I was given the best tea and toast of my entire life. Seriously, it is the best. After a couple of hours, and when people had left, we went upstairs, which was like 2 floors, and we were taken up there so Rupert could have his checks for his eyes and his ears and stuff like that. And then I was told I needed to have a wee so that they could make sure that I, you know, could still use all my bits down there before sending me home. When I tell you I was sat in this toilet for about half an hour to an hour trying to have a trickle of a wee, I'm not lying. I had guzzled down an entire jug of water as well, and just, you're so scared to wee and it is just so painful, oh my god. And after a while I finally did a wee and I was just so thankful. I was like, right, I'm not doing that again, ever, never having a wee again. Then at 6 o'clock on that night we were discharged from hospital and we were able to go home. So we were only in hospital for about 18 hours, like overall, from me breaking my waters to me getting discharged, which was absolutely incredible. So like, we did have to stay over, we didn't get moved to a ward or anything, which was really good because if I got moved to a ward, Harry wouldn't have been able to stay. So we were really happy with that. So that is my labour and delivery story. I hope it was enjoyable. I don't know if that's the word to use. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe and like, and I hope to see you in my next video very, very soon. I will be trying to vlog again soon, as I said, and you will be seeing a lot more of Rupert in those videos. I hope to see you very, very soon. Love you all. Bye.